Yeah.
All right, welcome everyone to a work session for the Mount Crescent Butte County Council. Topic tonight is emissions tax grant guideline review. And we have Marisa here to talk about it.
Yes, hello, hi everyone. So this is our review session essentially where we work through any changes that town council might see that they'd like to change to our guidelines. I've come up with a few different things that you'll see outlined in the report that I've created. You know, the biggest things you'll see that we were focused on was underneath updates. One kind of bigger change was to prioritize Mount CV specific businesses. And again, like this is just kind of the notes that I was taking over the past year, coming from town council when we've been reviewing applications. Another thing is just to streamline the guidelines. So you'll see that there's a few things that were removed just because they dealt with like what the application is going to ask. And we just feel like the guidelines need to be the guidelines and the application will be the application. The other thing that I created was a reporting rubric, which I think will help us. We in the past have just had a rubric for the applications. And I think having a reporting rubric will be beneficial and you'll also see that we manage the rubric. Unfortunately in Excel, there's no real way to align the changes, but I can kind of walk through the shift a little bit of the rubric scoring here in a bit. But does anyone, how would you we can approach this however we like. We can go through the guidelines kind of page by page and see if there's any additions or changes that we want to know. We can attack the rubric or however we'd like to do that, or if there's any questions automatically right off the bat, or if you guys saw something that was missing right off the bat. Okay.
Opinions? Well, anybody have questions right now?
I do appreciate the report.
Directors or
Issues. Does that just call out for reasons would be under application?
That is like when I've cut and pasted and put it into a different area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So that was already listed somewhere. I think it was listed actually under additional considerations. And I moved it into the application space.
Marissa, I was curious. I have a question on intent. And so I saw that for all tiers lower than new signatures, 200 or more. For all tiers lower than signature, basically they're expected to escalate to like a signature event after 5 years, right?
Yeah, essentially. Unless they're a Mount CV business.
Okay. Okay. There's one thought around, thanks for that clarification about the Mount CV business. Like, what if they don't want 200 people at their event? You know, like what if they're trying to keep more intimate space and experience?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. You know, in the past, what we have done here with, or the direction that I've received essentially is that for events, we want the organizations to be making their own money and producing money. So I think essentially the idea is more people, the more money that organization is making back for themselves. And then also, as they continue to grow, then perhaps they're able to ask for like less money. But that's not necessarily, you'll see kind of in the guidelines, that's not necessarily what we're saying anymore as a signature event. We're kind of saying like, this event is important to the town of Mount CV. We want you to get into a signature category so we can funds because we see it as a benefit as a town. So, but yeah, I mean, if everyone here on town council feels like we don't wanna have that cap for signature events, I'm trying to think. I'm really trying to think like of an example of, of that from like a community partner standpoint. Of that I might have ran into, that would have been just a smaller type of gathering.
The singer-songwriters thing initially was pretty. So, maybe not as.
No, it was always, you're talking about like on Utah,
Yeah, the.
but not working on Utah. Yeah, no, that was always like 100 plus they were aiming for.
Right, but yeah, I mean, like the first couple of years, cause I was living, like, probably just like.
Yeah, total, and that would count because that would be a total series. So, yeah,
My interpretation of the signature. Drawing the line between. Solid event that has a medium, you know, which can be a large event, small event, a signature event. Like, something you really hang your hat on. It's notable.
yeah, it's something that we don't want to go away, essentially, like a loss would be a loss for our community as we see that event happen. Believe it's a good thought. I can think about it. I don't have an event that I can think about that hasn't essentially wanted to grow or has wanted to keep it small, because I think if they keep it small, then it's not making them that money. Unless, you know, you have a small event where like a ticket is $400 because it's like an inclusive like summit or something like that. We haven't come across. I haven't come across something like that. Not to say that we wouldn't. And it could be one of those things too, where we could approach it when it does come, or if it does.
Yeah, and you could always attach sort of like a need, like a ceiling in terms of needed ROI for, you know, people or something like that. One thing you can do. You could have this cap, or if you can guarantee an ROI above a certain amount for an attendee, then that would circumvent that.
Yeah, and like that, where the intent is still being met, regardless of like what the task is to get you there.
Yeah.
Just wonder, after 5 years, they're gonna either reach the size they want to be or not. And if they're the size that they want to be, we wanna keep funding them to not grow, like, shouldn't it be stability at that point?
What if that's stability? What if with event patterns to that, like people are accomplishing their objectives, whatever they're, you know, and they'll have like, you know, the return on investment, regardless of the number. I don't think all the quantity is always the biggest indicator.
Yeah, I don't argue the quantity issue.
Yeah.
I'm fine with there being no number there. I just wonder if we have events that are, well, I don't think we have an event that fits this criteria, but, you know, if we had an event that 100 people attended, we don't want to make it any bigger, but we still want you to help fund it. What the town's benefit is in that, which maybe the event's just great enough that we don't care, but just hard for me to.
Well, I mean,
what to write a policy about around.
Sure. I mean, if the ROI is still right reasonable, then technically for AdTax, I mean, sort of falls in line. I do see what you're saying. You know, it's an interesting. Do we care more about like 100 people at a $50 ticket, or 50 people at a $100 ticket? Does that equal to us, or is it actually different for us? I don't know.
And it also depends on how much money it costs.
Yeah. So we set that ROI high enough. I mean, it might be a super posh event for like 25 people, so be maybe something we would like to see promoted as being is that.
The only other thing to think about is, you know, the more people is essentially heads and beds, right? So, like if you're looking at it from like a perspective of that elevation, if it's 50 people, even if the ticket sales are high, that's just a small amount of sales tax that we're collecting, and if then it's only 25. That's not CV.
To carry the argument, actually, I would say that those people will probably end up spending substantively more during their day. They'll be staying in a nicer accommodation. And so maybe, but maybe not also.
Can you clarify, were you saying that the fewer people are spending more money because they're?
Well, if you go, you know, there's so many hypotheticals going on right now, but if you picture some crazy, amazing event where people are paying $2,500 to come and do, it's unlikely for me that that person is also cashing in a Groupon at the elevation.
Or you're cashing on a couch.
Yeah, right. That's, I guess, the point.
Elevation doesn't move on.
They did when I worked there.
But even if it's, you know, college kids, each one of those kids buys 2 beers compared to 50 people buying one glass of wine.
Well, that's sort of a different parameter. Again, I'm talking about something that's like, not just a little bit more, but like, again, in this hypothetical that I'm presenting, it would be the odd college kid that's in that. Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
The only other thing to think about is, that would really only apply for for-profit organizations. So any nonprofit, there's not a cap
Okay.
for organizations, so like if it really would only be like that.
For profit.
So do we wanna weigh that, and or, again, I think it's just something that if we do run into it, that I would bring it to town council.
Sure.
And say, hey, what do we think about this particular
Yeah,
instance?
say just as long as it doesn't stop them at the door, like, you know, in terms of reading through this and being like, oh, I don't qualify, you know, I got this idea, but, so, you know, I float the idea of, yeah, if we did have an ROI on there that you already know without too much, like additional word, you know.
You know, one thing that I have found to be extremely tricky through this whole thing is the return financially for organizations. Because it's really hard for us to decipher what that actually is, not in all instances. But also what it means to an organization, so. The return on finance, how I have it laid out in the rubric, I think works. But further than that is really hard, so.
That's a hard line to draw. And I'm just tired of applicants being like, thanks for the money. We don't know how it did, what it did for us. You know, really appreciate the money, but you know, thanks.
Yeah, and that's why, so, you know, if we do wanna jump to like the application rubric. We do have now this line item that's quantifiable return. In the past, it was quantifiable ROI. And it's kind of the same, but we also have, you know, this financial need scope, that we had before, but this is a little bit more robust now. If you read through that, and then the reporting rubric, I think, does make a difference because it does have the financial success, and you'll see scores of 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, and 3. And the quantifiable return for the reporting rubric, I do think is going to make a difference. I think it puts parameters around what we're looking for in a rubric form. So essentially like, you know, oh, where do we mention this? Financial success. So you score a 1 if the event provided a modest monetary return for the organization and did not raise enough funds to cover the grant award. Right, so we've never had that clarified before. I think that's a really important one that maybe a lot of applicants don't look at. A 2 for that would be the event provided a modest monetary return to the organization, enough that it matched the grant award. And then a 3 would be, you know, the event provided a positive monetary return on investment to the organization, town, surpassing the grant award funds which were provided.
Sorry, which rubric were you on? Was it,
I'm on the reporting rubric.
right,
Yep,
Which-
under
which one?
financial success,
events?
under events, yep.
Because what you just recited did not match what is in the packet.
Are you underneath application or reporting?
Boarding rubric score sheet events.
And then there's a marketing criteria one, and then there's an event one. It's the top one. It's the event.
Events, yeah, so. Well, for 0, the event did not provide a positive monetary return for the organization.
Yep.
Period.
Yep.
You had other,
No, that's 0. I started with 1. 1 is the event provided a modest monetary return. That's in the middle there. So 0 is the event did not provide a positive monetary return, and then you have a 1 to 2 column. And then it says 1, the event provided a modest monetary return for the organization that did not raise enough funds to cover the grant.
thank you.
Yep.
Marissa, I think your rubrics are really good to have the application rubric and the one for reporting. It lets people know what your goals are, the reason you're funding them. It helps them write much better applications. And it very clearly outlines your expectation in reporting. So I think it's nice to have it all presented in time.
Yeah, that's where we're trying to go with that. Yep.
I would imagine. The applicant illustrating these things is just sort of baked into the process. Instead of just saying, yeah, it provided a positive impact. Out, I'm sure is a follow-up question, right? Okay.
Yeah, always.
Would it be too confusing with the rubric to rate certain things as higher impact? Meaning like, if somebody repeatedly doesn't show us what the return or financial success was, but they did pretty good in all other places, we're never in a situation to ding them for their reports. Like, well, they did pretty good over here, but this other thing which we really feel is important, they failed.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to.
No, my other question on my overview was to see if we wanted to do any weighting. So, you know, I'm seeking guidance to whether there should be weights to the rubrics. So if we all feel like the financial piece is a big one, then maybe that needs to be weighted at 50%. So we say, you know, if you have a 1 and this equates for half of all of these other things, that's a big one. You know, so we easily can put weights to these.
I'd ask other folks what they think are important.
And I'm thinking about yoga in the park. And I know we do some funding for that, but that's just a great community gathering service. It's not raising money, you're helping to support it. If they do raise money, it's tips from people who are showing up. It's, you know, there's some things just bring together the community. So I'm not really that excited about trying to weight some of the things. I think and people can do their own judgment. You know, they can say, well, we don't collect money, but you can survey the people that come and get data for you. And I think it helps them know how to make a better program by using rubrics.
I agree with you.
Yeah, maybe some kind of community column for the.
Okay.
Maybe something parallel with the financial success one, like if that's not the intent of the event. Because I still keep coming back to the same applicants that we keep giving money to, and like, yeah, we did some marketing, we have no idea what it is. We have no idea if it improved our bottom line. here's our annual budget, which tells us nothing, so.
So, and I think what part of having the reporting rubric is that when that same applicant comes back the next year, we can include what their previous report rubric score was. And that can always influence, our guidelines do say, like that can always influence council's decision on what is received or approved.
You know, I like the idea of sort of community benefit being part of the rubric. I am getting a little nervous about onerous reporting. Because it can get onerous very quickly. And we want them to be focusing on the event, not capturing all of the information per se, especially to the detriment potentially of running the event. You know, there's a capacity conversation at some point. But I still think in general, right, to Bobby's point, if we capture that, and we'd be able to weigh it potentially in scenarios like yoga where there is consistent, you know, unsatisfactory outcomes with regards to financial or sort of proving marketing ROI, which I appreciate are very important, but for me, doesn't necessarily make it a no-go. And so I'd also agree that I'm probably averse to waiting.
Different categories, and an event is different than marketing. Like, you know, advertising something, you know, has a different expectation of measurement of the events. And we've had events where literally heads aren't counted. So that's a failure of that event, or a marketing brand. They did no, you know, pay-per-click analysis or click-through rates or anything else.
The other thing we could talk about doing, and I appreciate that, right, is setting sort of a threshold line for total score, but also individual rubrics. So, you know, all of these are important, but if on any of them individually, you fail to score above a 2, you know, that's going to be a red flag. Or if you fail to score of a 1, then you probably not, doesn't cut much. So,
Except
yes,
for like a first year event,
for sure.
you know, or a second year event, which is kind of why we have that like 5-year kind of period, right? We know that, especially for a lot of our community partners who run small organizations or don't have that capacity and haven't done events, there is like that first year learning. So it's kind of, you know, we like to see these events evolve and be there to help and support and help them make changes. You know, one thing we could consider doing too is having a different rubric per category. So it could be that this rubric is for our signature events. This rubric is for destination category, and then this is for our community partners. Think about crazy. So I mean, we could go into that if that would be seen as a benefit.
I'd say only if we define very specific things that are different requirements between, which we haven't quite yet, you know, so.
The difference between the signature event and the rest of them is supposed to be like the big splashy thing that we want to have in town regardless. That sounds a lot like the community. So.
We can just, okay,
Yeah, if we
that's
use
fair.
that could be the differentiator between the types.
Well, or I can just add a community impact line item like we were all discussing and add that into the rubric. I think that's a great recommendation. Because I think that's value for all the events that we're talking about anyway, right? There should be that, there ends up being that community impact.
Just make sure that whatever we finally end up calling it doesn't get confused with something financial. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want community impact to be like, we raised this many tax dollars in community impact. No, this is stuff that makes it better to live here or better to visit.
Right, and that's, I'm wondering if there needs to be a distinction between sort of like yoga is a benefit, right? Maybe not a splash per se, you know, and so we want to make sure that room for both of those to be considered in that community aspect, right? Yeah.
Like our bus system, it's not an event, but it's still something we're known. You come here, you get a free bus. You know, you don't have to pay to get on a bus or drive it. And it's something we care about.
Clarity, the 75% in the first year and 100% match for profit, that's still, it's $4,000 in the first year. The entity is supposed to provide 3, and after that, it's 100%.
For for-profit, I feel like that should just keep going down. I mean, if they're not investing more, then why are we investing more? I mean, maybe not continually going down, but if it's not a big enough benefit to their business that, you know, they're willing to pay for 75% of it themselves, is it really a good business decision in the first place?
Well, I think that's where kind of the signature event, you know, so if we think about that as a
I'm thinking more
signature.
about marketing right now.
Okay, so let's go to that marketing category. So that doesn't, it's not part of the marketing category. It's only the for-profit Mount Seek businesses. So, what I would equate that to would be like a bar above and coffee lab. When we know that they're operationally, they're for-profit, they're not making huge margins specifically now. Like as they've started, like a bar above starting off. I think that's where
Does a
I
bar
see a
come in
differentiation.
events or under marketing?
Marketing and events.
Okay.
They
So-
work with their events.
So marketing is included in events. So when you apply for an event, you can apply for marketing funds, but it's not its own category. It's in the event category.
Okay.
And so like a bar above, when they do their music, that's considered an event. And they might pay for marketing dollars in that. But like Coffee Lab, for example, they're not running any events. They're just wanting marketing dollars for their base area business.
Mhm.
So they'll apply just for the marketing piece. You know, I think that's a conversation that we've talked about a few times, like, and I've actually had a few off conversations from organizations of being like, we're thinking about moving our business to Mount CB. We saw you have this grant. How can we, like, how would this grant help and benefit us? Do you think it's kind of a piece of, if we have something like this in here and we're supporting Mount CB businesses, that's kind of special? You think about it like that? Like we're saying, yes, we want your business here. You also can apply for this grant. And we want to see you succeed off the get-go, and this is kind of like something that can help with those upfront costs as well.
Yeah, I think maybe, if I remember right, there was conversation about willing to give sort of a potentially good idea, a one-off try, knowing that maybe the people trying to put it on don't have.
Yeah, and I'm all about giving people money up front for the new thing that they're trying. It's more of the 4 years down the road, like, why are we still matching you 50-50 on your marketing budget versus you paying 75% of your marketing budget?
So like this under marketing specific is, if marketing efforts do not show a positive return to the organization after 5 years, the business will not be eligible to apply for funding.
Okay, I guess that's good enough for me.
And what we're also going to start doing, because Rebecca and I talked about this, is for the events category. In the past, we've just scored on the events, even if there's a marketing component there, and we haven't scored on the marketing. So I think what you will see is 2 rubrics coming your way. So like, for example, chilling beer. You know, if they have a marketing component, that they get scored on that marketing. Just on that. So that would be a shift as well.
And that'll be weighted by how much of the money was spent on marketing versus the event.
No, it's just using the rubric for marketing too. So in the past, like if a organization was just applied, like as a signature event, let's say, we've just scored them on the event rubric. So we'll now include a marketing, we'll include that marketing rubric because their event is utilizing marketing as well. So.
Would we ever restrict them to how they spend the money based off of like, if their marketing was poorly reported or just poorly received? That we're like, we'll help you put on the event, but we're not paying for your marketing?
I think that those are conversations that are always evolving, right? Like, so if we're talking about a first year event, the first year event maybe has tried to market one thing and they're like, well, that didn't work, or we don't have data for it. So then they're probably not going to use that same channel the next year. Or if they do, they realize pretty quickly like what that mistake was or where that error happened. So really we see that shift naturally anyway. And it's something that like when I go through a report, I will ask those questions anyway. I'll say, you know, what was your value here? Or I saw in your report last year that this improved. Do you see anything or you think you know, you can fund what you as an organization are welcome to fund that, but maybe that's not the best stock for grant funds. We do have those conversations.
Right.
Yeah. But having a report rubric will help that even further. Right, so it's not just like looking at their past report, but having a reporting rubric will help us even more.
Marissa, I don't see you where, so you've got, I just want to make sure I'm following the flow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guidelines.
Sure.
So is the entire first section just pertinent, basically, you know, where it starts application categories,
Yep.
and then you start going through events, destination events, blah, 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 traditional marketing, and then below that, no, that looks like it falls within marketing. The marketing section has a separate breakout for Gunnison Valley and for-profit Mount CV. So then, because when you were saying, it still looks to me like you're asking for all events to, after 5 years, excel to the signature event category. And it looks like the signature event category pertains to everybody, the way that it's written. In terms of like, the summary where it says signature events on page 2, for a packet, that 200 guests looks like it applies to nonprofit, government, for-profit.
No, it doesn't apply for the community growth and fundraising events. So, oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but, yes, I see what you're saying. No. Right. I think that changed that I manually stuff because you'll see in that it says community growth and fundraising event. There is no minimum attendee amount and only Gunnison County organizations can apply for funding. And then below that, it does say after that, the applicant will need to move into the signature category.
Right.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yep, I will strike that and make that change. Thank you.
And is the intent that nonprofits, even in the, like signature events, no matter the signature event, the expectation is 200 guests? Whether it's nonprofit, government, or profit. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. But the intent is not that every single event must move into the signature category after 5 years.
Yeah, for community growth and fundraising, no.
Okay.
That was not the intent.
Okay.
So that is an error.
Okay.
In this.
So that second bullet point under nonprofit or government organization requirements is just gonna go away?
And also for profit?
No, not for profit.
No,
Okay.
Hang on 1 minute.
Sure.
Let me just think really quick. Trying to look through. A Gunnison County organization. That would be around community growth and fundraising, that would be a for-profit. Let me think about that a little bit, Galita. Thanks for pointing it out. I know for sure that that bullet point, that second one underneath nonprofit government organization is not supposed to be there. But I think I need to think a little bit. I always try to think about like previous applicants and what we've ran into. And who that would be.
If somebody was putting on an event like that for 5 years in a row as a for-profit entity, wouldn't we at some point want them to spin off a nonprofit to host that event?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, if it's a community growth event, it would be. I think, okay, Bobby's example of yoga, right? There's gonna be a yoga studio that's a, for-profit organization, let's say. And it might not be that they're there to make themselves a ton of money, but it's there for the community, right? So I'm thinking,
Maybe it's like bar putting on an event, they don't necessarily make a big margin, but.
but it's
Maybe
for
they can
community
bring the
growth
community together.
specifically. Yeah, and so. So that might even go away from for-profit as well, if I think about it like that, but that would be a Mount CD business. If it was a bar above, whereas like yoga could be, you know, any type of. So we'd have that different rule for that Mount CD business. I'll think about it a little bit. Is there a preference that if you think about it that way, that you guys would see in that category, so of swaying one way or the other, essentially? So let's say it's yoga, because I think that's a good one to think about. The most people are going to be like 50 people, let's say. They're maybe asking for $5 per person that comes in. They're not gonna make a lot of money, but they wanna have it here. Do we necessarily care how many years they have it, if it's specific to, and this is where that rubric, Bruce, would come in, of that community impact? If that community impact is high enough, do we care how many years in a row it's awarded, even if it is a for-profit, but it proves that the community event is worthy of that?
Yeah, in that instance, I don't care.
Yeah, and I don't really see the need to, set a different standard for nonprofit and for-profit in that arena either.
Okay.
Yeah, personally, I might be missing, where do you call out Mount CB businesses? Just in the rubric? Or is it in the descriptions too?
It is in, yeah, it's just the rubric.
Atomic Mount CB.
Yeah, it's just the rubric.
Just the rubric,
Mhm.
okay.
Because they apply to every category essentially.
We got a letter from somebody at the newspaper a while back asking about.
I'm sorry, I just have one more, can I
Yeah.
table that really quick, just because I have one more thing that I do wanna talk about. And it's just in my memo, you'll see that, I'm asking if we can be comfortable with, and we can have this conversation when I come back to you with these changes. But I'm trying to put this application into our new GovWell system. And I'd like to not make changes to the guidelines in at least 2 years. Few reasons for that. One, it's pretty, not only is it labor intensive, but it's confusing for me a little bit, and it's become confusing for me as staff to know what guideline we're on for applicant per year. And then two, it's confusing for applicants. So if you think about it as like a person applying for a grant and they want to apply for this grant year after year, when those guidelines change year after year, it does become more of a challenging process. And so, not to say that you'll see it in my report, I'm not to say that we can't like come back and make like urgent revisions like we've done in the past, we have done that. But just for like consistency moving forward, and then I'd like to streamline this into a digital application, which will have it help with reporting. So the idea is if I move it into GovWell, it's an application process that's digital, it's done digitally. They'll get notifications from me if I have questions or changes. They'll also get notifications when the reports are due. It's like a very streamlined process that the community development department is using for all of like their building permits and applications, and they can build specific applications for staff. So it's where I'd like to take this application rather than it just being a PDF form. That would really help me if we can sit down and say, I'd like to, let's stick with these guidelines for at least 2 years and see how they do. And again, it's not that we can't come back and change some really like specific things, but I'd like to get it to a point where we're like comfortable with this just for a little bit so we can just see how it moves and goes.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm on board. That's gonna take some fortitude on our part to stand up to applicants and reporting when they try to use. That's half the reason these edits come up, is because like, oh, that person jelloed into a box, you know.
Totally.
Well, say this instance comes up where, you know, so he doesn't quite fit within a requirement, but they have to review and adjust fairly, you know, bringing a lot of people to the community. There's just an instance we haven't seen before, but we think it's a valid event. We can still approve it, right?
Yes.
Without treating the guidelines.
Yes, I mean, we can, yes, to an it makes sense. We would probably, what we would do is do a guideline revision at that same time when we would do an application, like an applicant. It's just, like, yeah, so if you guys did approve it, it would be up to you. You know, is this a one-off type of thing that you're seeing that you want to approve, or is it something further that you want to use the guidelines?
Yeah, like Lee mentioned, we could get the novel thing that no one had ever thought of before. Yes, let's do that.
Let's do it. Absolutely.
So we should always have a mechanism for that.
In place, yeah.
We can just say, we don't care about the guidelines on this one, we just want to do it, bam.
Yeah. And that's, it's always up to the council's discussion.
Yeah.
We're fine.
And I think with regards to, I would almost, to your point about letting it sit for 2 years, even if there was something that came through, I would avoid revising the guidelines in tandem and let the 2 years pass and see what the heat map is for how many of those applications actually show up.
It would be nice, yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be the way to do it, because one might be a one-off, 20 by the end of this a year's cycle, then we do need to probably make a revision change, yeah. But otherwise, let's stay the course a little bit to support your point.
Yeah, and I agree with keeping it steady for a while, but I would say that we shouldn't stop talking about guideline revisions. We should keep writing these things down as they come up, where we're like, I wasn't happy with this. So that in 2 years' time, we don't forget about them.
Yeah, I mean, we can still have this, I'm still happy to have this annual meeting. I think it's really
I think
beneficial.
Chris has a good idea, we should
Absolutely.
endeavor to not change the guidelines, but still have the discussion.
And say, how did this last year go? What did we see that were successful? What did we see that we really need, you know? Absolutely, that's real, I mean, it's really helpful for me, you know?
Can you make a suggestion on reporting to avoid the ever rare but tin cup situation.
Yes, that has changed in our guidelines.
Just
So,
look at reporting, doesn't say if they have to make money.
oh, yeah, it should, sorry. It's up to town council, so that has, it already did change. It is,
Complete report.
proper use of funds. And then unused funds. So funds, misuse of funds.
Where are we?
Here.
Can you find us where you're looking?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm on page 8 of like the packet PDF and it's under reporting.
Got it.
Let's see here. So complete reporting, reports must be accurate and complete. Failure to provide requested data or submission of the report will result in reimbursement of funds and loss of future eligibility for any town not cost of grant. So if they don't report at all, and then, and then we have proper use of funds under that. I can change to any verbiage that you'd like, you know, funds must be used as outlined in the application. Misuse of funds will require reimbursement and may prevent future grant eligibility. Unused funds, unspent funds must be returned to the town.
Yeah, I really just scanned through that one, didn't I?
No, that's
I
okay.
thought I was like, it's not in here.
No, that's fine. No, it's a lot. That is the hard thing. It's a lot to process.
But under complete reporting, 30% sometimes of the reporting is, there's still outstanding questions that.
Yeah, so what I'm hoping with the digital application is there's going to be a character count limit, right? And I'm hoping that I can add some more form fields that will make it easier. Right now, like the PDF it's kind of clunky. It's a clunky way to do it. I think I'm gonna have a lot more, we do ask the question, you know, when an applicant comes back, we ask the question, but in a digital form, it will be like, this is required. You can't actually hit submit if this is blank, or if that part is blank. And I think like, I'm looking at being even more detailed, so, you know, in our current application, it's like, what is your marketing plan? You know, and we just kind of like leave it blank. And so instead I'm thinking, are you using Facebook? You have to check. Are you using Facebook or using Instagram? Right? And just like getting really specific and how much are you spending there? So it's like those required form fields is kind of what I'm thinking through. And I'm going to try, so I don't revise the application until I have these revised guidelines to make sure you guys are on board with all of it. But then, you know, I go ahead and I'll change the application as well. But that's what I'm hoping that is going to help with that digital piece, is that it's more kind of forced to do the thing. So, yeah, for sure.
Anybody have anything else before we?
So,
Did you,
yeah, the
yes,
newspaper advertising, did we want to put something in the rubric to allow that or not? I don't have super strong opinions either way, but I didn't know what everyone else thought.
Yeah, there was an email, you know what we're talking about.
yeah, you
Okay.
sent my response
Yeah,
back
yeah.
though, right?
Yeah.
That made sense. Yeah.
You know what? I don't remember the response.
My response is that we in no way, shape, or form prevent or tell people that they can't spend their marketing dollars how they'd like to spend marketing dollars. And you'll see, if you saw my report on what event was just most recent. Yeah, I'm really sorry. It was crazy last week. Our fall festival. So our fall festival, so we as a town use print advertising for all of the events that we do. If you read through my staff report, I did a marketing report in there, and you will would have seen that I was able to equate a lot of the digital data that I got from the event responses to advertising that was outside of digital marketing. So the hard thing is like, that's what I have a master's in. I have a master's in marketing strategy and digital strategy. I don't expect that, all of the applicants that we have is going to hire like a marketing agency to do all those things that they can. And they can at any point, they can hire a marketing agency to help them do those things. So as long as an applicant can say, we have a way to track this, and we can track it and we're super confident, and we know this community because we know this community gets marketing, not just through digital, but through print marketing, through radio. We know it's advantageous. And we know that because again, as a town, we use it all the time. So it's not discouragement. It's because these are grant funds, we just need to know how or where you're imagining, where did those 50 people come from that came here? Like, where did they hear about your event if it's going to be tax dollars through admissions tax that they're paying for? So that's the only thing that I was asking. Can you track it? You can, there's a way to track it, but how are you gonna do that? And so a lot of organizations, if they don't have a marketing agency that they're working with, which again, grant can pay for that, it can make it really challenging, can make it hard on the applicant.
Yeah, it's tough for me because I also don't know how to do that. So,
Totally, I get it, yeah, and the other thing is, in my email response too was, so let's say you don't have that knowledge and you don't want to hire the marketing agency to do that. You can move funds around and you can say, I as an organization know that this is really good. So I, out of my own budget, am going to pay the $600 or the $1,000 to do the thing that maybe doesn't track. So then I'm going to ask more money for the digital advertising piece that the grant does pay for, that does track.
okay. One last thing we talked about in the last meeting we were handing out grants was whether in-kind donations would be acceptable. Did we address that in this at all?
I didn't, it's just, we kept the use of funds of own funds, and knowing that what I was thinking was that it does track, but I can specifically add that in there. It still just says the word own funds, so, they're providing own funds, and I could put like in parentheses, including, this includes in-kind donations. We want it clarified there, happy to make that change. I felt like we made that as a clarifying thing, but you're right, maybe it's not outlined as such as like public knowledge in the guidelines.
We're gonna get another look at these. Right, when they come back to us.
Yeah, I'll have a clean version.
All right, anything else on the work session? All right, let's take
Thanks, everyone.
a few minutes.